This episode is brought to you by Experian. Are you paying for subscriptions you don't use, but can't find the time or energy to cancel them? Experian could cancel unwanted subscriptions for you, saving you an average of $270 per year and plenty of time. Download the Experian app. Results will vary. Not all subscriptions are eligible. Savings are not guaranteed. Paid membership with connected payment account required.
So our expectations for our players when they step on that practice field is it's full speed all the time. I mean, you're taking a game rep every stinking rep in your individual versus the offense, in scout team, whatever it is, you are taking a game rep. And because you do that, you cannot demand that on kids and then practice for 24, 30 periods.
In this episode of Coach and Coordinator Podcast of the season, presented by Vertical Rays, Jess Loepp, the defensive coordinator at UTSA, discusses the importance of aligning with head coach Jeff Traylor's philosophy of emphasizing perfect effort and physicality on defense. And he digs into the unique tackling technique they call cut the face, focused on explosive hits for more effective tackling in practice and on game day. Be sure to check out our partner, Vertical Rays. Elevate your program's online fundraising to new heights. Use Vertical Rays online fundraising system and raise more money in less time. Vertical Rays has multiple fundraising solutions to fit your program's needs, leverage best-in-class technology, text and email deliverability, and an in-person fundraising coach walks your team through every step of the process. The link to Vertical Rays is in the description. Stay tuned for our Winning Edge takeaways following the episode. On today's episode of our season series, we're talking with Jess Loepp, defensive coordinator at UTSA. We've had great conversations with the UTSA staff before. Sadiq Haynes has been on numerous times, and of course, head coach Jeff Traylor has been on this past March, but also in some clinic segments as well. I think these guys do an outstanding job within the program, and I'm really excited to have Coach Loepp here today. So, Coach, thank you for joining me.
Hey, you bet, Keith, man. I'm happy to be on and excited to talk a little bit with you.
So, Coach, I think one of the things that really interested me in the conversation with Coach Traylor was what he refers to as his always. And it's something that he uses to make sure that things are being done the way he'd like to see them done. But at the same time, I really felt he's a coach who empowers you to do your job in the way that you need to do it. We just got to make sure that we're hitting on some of these things. I think it really is something when you lay those things out, it serves to have that great coach-to-coach relationship for you as the defensive coordinator. That's obviously important to have that kind of relationship with the head coach. You know what he needs from you, and you know what you need to do to have the ability to get those things done. So would love to hear you talk about that. I think we spent a lot of time talking on the offensive side when Coach joined us, but more on what that looks like on the defensive side with you and Coach Traylor.
No, you bet. The first thing that Coach Traylor talked about when he hired me as the defensive coordinator, and he just said this, he said, Jess, look, there's two things that I'm going to want to see from our defense in every game. And as long as you show me those two things, he said, and now listen, as a D coordinator, you hear this, you're going to write these two things down. He said, you will have a job with me forever. And so, Keith, you know already in this profession, the job security is not as stable as a lot of jobs. So whenever I heard that, I was like, oh, shoot, note to self, I'm going to make sure we do these two things every game. But he told me, yes, I want to make sure that, number one, our kids are running to the ball like no one else. I want people, when they play us, they look on that film and they say, holy smokes, these guys play relentless. They give perfect effort. That's kind of what we call it here. That's one of our culture pillars is perfect effort. But I want to make sure those offensive coordinators know that these kids are going to give perfect effort every single play. And so we stress that as a defense. Our position coaches stress it to their positions. And we talk about it not just in practice, but we talk about it every rep in practice. I mean, it's something that, we hound on, we grade, hold our kids accountable. And it's not one of those things that we do and watch film of practice and then hold them accountable the next day. We have our analysts, that's what our analysts do, right? They're on clipboards and grading kids, but they are watching these kids all the time. And we call them out right then, and we put their name down, and then we take care of it after practice. So you're going to see us play with perfect effort. The second thing that he told me, he said, I want to make sure that we're the most physical defense out there. We're the most physical team. And so he wants our kids being striking guys. And a lot of that, Keith, is giving them the freedom, number one, to play fast, but also not putting too much on them so there's not a lot of thinking. And so those two things, he said, if you can do those two things, he said, you'll have a job with me forever. Now, there's going to be some things that you understand. We've got to be sound, right? We can't have guys running wide open down the field. We can't have A gaps and B gaps in our defense with nobody in them. I mean, he's going ahead and basically saying just we're going to be sound. I mean, we're going to take care of that. But it's so much the style of play versus what we do or how much we do. It's refreshing because we sit here and worry about trying to come up with some new scheme or sit here and worry about, golly, are we doing all these different coverages and all these blitzes and do we look good? And people, oh, man, wait till you play these guys. They got all this neat stuff. He doesn't put that pressure on me. He doesn't care if we run one coverage and one blitz. As long as he understands and we see that film, our kids are going to be playing super fast, perfect effort, and they're going to knock the ever-living piss out of people. And so that is, for me, refreshing knowing that I work for a head coach like that.
So there's some things I definitely want to unpack here, especially this time of the year. You are going to get those things because you keep it simple. But I want to focus a little bit on getting those two things and how that works for you throughout the season, because running to the ball and being physical certainly are things that affect the player's workload, right? So you need to look at that over the course of a week, and you don't want to sharpen the sword dull. You want those guys doing that on game day. So how do you, I guess, build that up into a game day and make sure that we're not leaving it all out on the practice field when we talk about running the ball and being physical?
Great question. We'll go through the perfect effort first. Number one, Coach Traylor does a great job with us as far as not practicing us too long. So our expectations for our players when they step on that practice field is it's full speed all the time. I mean, you're taking a game rep every stinking rep in your individual versus the offense, in scout team, whatever it is, you are taking a game rep. And because you do that, you cannot demand that on kids and then practice for 24, 30 periods, in our opinion. I'm not saying you can't, maybe I shouldn't say that, but our opinion, we don't think we can get a perfect rep out of our kids every rep if we're going to practice that long. So we cut practice down a little bit and make sure it's manageable where we can get that. And that also goes in turn throughout the whole week that for their workload up to game day, right? And because you said exactly right, we keep it simple. Well, when you don't practice as long, you have to keep it simple because you can't do as much. And so that's one of the things we do for our kids as far as getting a perfect rep out of them every day. And then like I was mentioning earlier, we're going to hold them accountable. We're going to watch them and make sure they are giving a perfect effort rep. Are they running to the ball? And like I said, if they don't, wipe their name down. We call them out then because we don't want anybody to be surprised. We let them know, hey, so-and-so, you're loafing. That's a loaf. And then we add them all up. And then at the end of practice, we do 5-backs as a team for every single one of them. And when the kids know they're going to be held accountable and it's done right away, I've got kids, Keith. We haven't talked much. I don't know if you're married, have kids, anything that. But when you have kids, when you hold kids accountable, your own kids accountable right away, then they learn so much faster. But when you wait a day or when you wait a long time and say, hey, you remember when you did this? We're holding, man, that they don't take to it as good, right? And my kid, if I do that to my oldest son's going, dang, Dad, that was yesterday. I mean, we've gone a whole new day, and now you're holding me accountable? And so we just believe in holding them accountable right then and there that day. And do we miss some? Yes. Will we see some on film that we missed? Yes. But we believe it's more important to hold them accountable immediately than the next day. And so that's kind of how we're able to get the perfect effort out of it and how we coach it or teach it and try to hold them accountable to it. The second thing, and this is the hardest one, right? We talk about physical toughness being a physical defense. Well, Coach Traylor doesn't let us hit much in practice. We don't get a tackle much. So we really, really have to focus on our tackle circuits, our tackling drills. That's when we're going to do most of our tackling. But then we have a different style, Keith, that we use, and we call it cut the face and press the hip. Everything we do, if you look at a football game, there's really not a ton of tackles where guys are just meeting up, you're squared up with the guy, you're hitting them, and you're wrapping up, and it's just like one of those goal line stalemate tackles in the A-gap. You don't have a ton of that. You really don't. And so what we do is we cut the face and press the hip. And what that means is our cut the face guys, who are usually our edge defenders, our outside linebackers, our corners, sometimes our safeties based on the formation or based on what happens in front of them, they're going to cut the face. And it's a full speed running at that outside hip of that guy, and you're trying to blow him up. There is no breaking down. We did this 5 years ago, and the guy that taught it to me was Tyrone Nix. And when he first told me, I said, "You're freaking crazy. There ain't no way I'm going to teach a safety who's 12 yards deep, come down and not break down. I've never done that before. We've always broke down." Well, he explained and said, "Jess, here's the deal. We're not going to break him down. We're just going to run full speed at their outside hip. And if we make the play, great. But if we don't, it's going to force him to stop. We've got to be so close, he has to stop. And then now all those guys, we talked about that first thing, perfect effort, all those guys running to the ball are going to get rewarded for that guy stopping, and they're going to get a kill shot because they're pressing the hip, right? They're running at that near hip, and they're running at that near hip expecting him to cut back. You can't overrun it. You can't take an angle like you're trying to take a cutoff angle because you're going to overrun the hip. You got to trust your defensive player who's supposed to cut the face that he's going to do it, and then that way you run to the near hip. So that's kind of how we teach it in practice. So we don't ever break down in practice, and we run right past guys. So our cut the face defenders in practice, we got great film of it. Those guys are running, and they run so fast and so close to the offensive player that they literally almost, go shoulder pad to shoulder pad, and that guy has to stop. Our head coach, Coach Traylor, tells all of our offensive guys when we go against them in any kind of setting, he said, "Look, fellas, our defense is going to cut the face, so don't sit there and try to think you're going to juke them and bounce outside of them, because if you do, there's going to be a huge collision, and it's your fault because those defensive guys aren't slowing down. They're going to haul right on past you, and they're going to, like I said, cut the face." And then so again, it rewards our guys who are pressing the hip and who are chasing the ball. And as we do it in practice, they go right behind the guy. They don't go in front of the guy. They go behind the guy. They hit that near hip. So that's kind of how we teach our tackling. Well, what do you get out of that? Well, when you get in the game, number one, we've been practicing all week of not slowing down and not trying to, because that's what happens in practice, right? When you tackle somebody in practice, you slow down. It's trying to be under control. It's high and hard, but it's not full speed because everybody's trying to slow down so there's not a big collision. Well, now you don't slow down in practice. So in a game, we're not slowing down. It's full speed, and that's where you get your big collisions, your physical hit, and that's kind of what we hang our hat on. Do we have some missed tackles? Sure, we get a little bit of missed tackles, but the guys aren't going very far after the missed tackle because we've got so many guys chasing the ball and trying to knock the living piss out of them.
I love it, and there's a ton to unpack here, and I'll start with saying all missed tackles are not alike, and there is such thing as a productive miss, which is exactly what you explained right there.
100%. I'll tell you this, Keith, our field safety 4 years ago is 5'8", about 190 pounds. And if he listens to this, because he's coaching in Oregon right now, AP, I love you. You're awesome. I wish I still had you. But he'll tell you he wasn't the most athletic guy, right? He hated to try to break down. Space was not his friend, and it made him nervous. And so whenever we taught him this, he said, "Coach, so you're telling me if I miss a tackle, you're not going to get mad at me as long as I miss it with leverage and make that guy stop?" I said, "AP, that's right, buddy." And it was like a light bulb went off in his head. He's like, "Oh," it's like he had more confidence now, right? You told a kid who struggles in space, who is a great football player, that, man, I won't get in trouble for missing a tackle. Man, his just confidence grew. So he ended up making those plays in space because he had more confidence. Was it a pretty tackle? No. But shoot, he clipped that outside hip of that guy, and that guy knew there was people chasing him. And so that running back had nowhere to go. He had to try to beat AP out wide, and AP would just smoke him and cut through his legs and cut through his hip, and shoot, he was making plays. So that's kind of a big thing it just kind of grows their confidence. Like you just said, if you have a missed tackle, they're not all the same.
And I think there's something in utilizing that type of technique where you're running through it. I see so many guys, you think about what happens when you do slow down, what could happen? Because some people teach it a different way, and that's fine. And I'll go back to, I really think you guys just have aligned everything from philosophy, technique, scheme. I'll get to that in a second. But what I see as guys kind of slow down, the running back now, one has, or the ball carrier, whoever that might be, has more time to make his decisions. That reaction time now is a little bit more for him. And how many times do you see that guy who slows down gets stiff arm and ends up out leveraged on the outside? And now everybody, instead of pressing the hip, they're in chase mode, right? Because now he's broken leverage. So, the other thing too is when you do that in practice, you guys are focusing on running the feet. I think the other thing that I see that puts guys in a vulnerable position is when they lose their feet because they're not running through, right? I think you have a productive miss, but you're going to have those big plays because guys are running their feet. They're not leaving their feet to go and get somebody.
100%. No, you're exactly right. And I like what you said as far as guys slowing down. Here's the thing. If you watch all the missed tackles throughout the season, and again, we're going to miss some too, even the method we do it. But when you slow down, you are allowing that offensive player to set you up. I don't think that offensive player, because how many times in practice does that offensive player have a guy run at full speed and not slow down? Not very much. Because why? Most people are breaking down. So those offensive players, when they're going against the scout team defense or they're going against the first team defense, people are slowing down and breaking down to try to get in position to make a tackle. So that's what they're used to seeing. And so we believe that when we don't slow down and flying right out that guy, he is seeing something that he's not used to seeing in practice, which you know as well as I know, you get more practice reps than game reps. So the more reps in practice you have, well, shoot, it overrides all the game reps you get with guys coming at you full speed.
Definitely. And I mentioned going back to what I really saw here is we started talking about the always. So essentially the philosophy, the pillars, run to the ball, be the most physical defense, align with the technique that you put together. I mean, it fits perfectly. And then because you're not overwhelming them with scheme, they continue to be able to play fast. I love also that you said Coach Traylor and really getting that aligned in how you guys are going to practice with the guys that they're seeing in practice, right? And letting them know, like, we're going to have some big collisions here if you guys aren't aware of this technique that's happening.
No doubt. No doubt. And that's the great thing with all of us working together. Now, we're not trying. I mean, I tell my guys, look, we're not going to hit them, but I want you to get so close they think you're going to hit them. And Coach Traylor's good with that. And it's just been a great way to practice. Number one, we've been able to stay healthy because we've been able to avoid all these breakdown tackle collisions. Because even if, we're going to be high and hard, we're going to be under control. Well, yeah, but that means you're still having two guys running into each other and getting tangled up. Now, do we have some thug stuff where we do? Yes, but we tell our kids all the time that's in the box, that's 10 and 2, that's running through gaps. Look, we got to fudge you up then. But once that ball gets outside the tackle box, boys, it's all cut the face, press the hip.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So a couple questions here before we wrap things up. And the first one, going back to, you talked about the effort, right? And I think what you said makes a ton of sense, right? Watching practice film, and some guys get to do that after practice. Some have to watch it before practice the next day, and then making the corrections off of it is fine, but you're trying to reinforce and build habits, and you're able to do that right away. You're utilizing analysts, and I know you've coached at the high school level at Lake Travis and Prosper High School. So exactly what I'm talking about here. How would you recommend that high school coaches do that when they don't have a team of analysts to keep an eye on what's happening with the effort?
Well, that you're exactly right. That's tough. I think that's where you have to decide, is it more important to watch your guys and check out assignments out on the field and do the effort later, or do you go ahead and work the effort and then watch the assignment stuff on film and discuss that with them later? You just got to figure out what's more important to you. You've done it long enough and you've coached a position long enough. You can do both. But when you're a young coach, it's hard to do both, right? You're still drinking water out of a fire hydrant, they say, or a fire hose. And so you might have to figure out, okay, what am I trying to get out of this thing? What is the most important thing for me to do to get out of practice to make my guy better? And then that's just got to be kind of a coordinator type discussion and figure out what's best for his team.
The last thing is, from a philosophical standpoint, you emphasize how you play rather than what you do. That you've said numerous times, you want to keep it simple. So you're sitting around on a Monday after the game planning, and as always, the ideas come out, hey, this might work here, that might work there. What's the filter for you to make sure that you're keeping your guys playing fast when it comes to Saturdays?
My assistant coaches, because they know that I have a problem of wanting to do too much. Coach Scott, we just hired as linebacker coach here, and he does a great job. And shoot, he and I, we were watching some film just last week, and it was just he and I in there, and we're going, oh, man, we could do this, and we can do this, and we can do this. And I finally looked at him. I said, well, Coach Scott, I know you're not the one that's going to help me keep this thing dang simple. And we just started laughing. But, I've got some really, really good – I've got some great assistant coaches. I got some great ones that help hold me accountable. Nick Graham, as good as I've ever been around in the secondary, and he helps me keep it simple back there. Zach Brown, Sadiq Haynes, Pat on here, they do a tremendous job as well to help keep things simple up front. And we just do it together as a group. We really do. It's not about my plan. It's about our plan. It's not about what I know. It's about what our kids know. And we just continue to focus on that. And then Coach Traylor, he doesn't mess with us much, but one thing he'll pick his head in there. And I've got the majority of times our calls written on the board. He'll look at those calls and say, Jess, that's quite a few. And then when he says that, I know, okay, I better cut some things out. So that's about all he'll tell me. He won't mess with me other than that, but he wants to make sure our kids are going to be playing fast and we're going to keep it simple.
Coach, I really appreciate you giving us some insight into the way that you do things and the things that work for you at UTSA. And certainly best of luck to you and the Roadrunners this season.
Thanks, Keith. I appreciate the time.
Here are Winning Edge takeaways and ideas for implementation. 1. Sit down and discuss the always. Coach Traylor's always principles put the staff and the coordinators on the same page. Coach Traylor emphasizes two main principles for the defense: perfect effort and physicality. He wants the defense to be relentless in their effort and ensure that they are the most physical team on the field. Understanding the importance of these to the program, Coach Loepp builds around those always. Whether you're the head coach talking to coordinators talking to position coaches, understanding what those always are for each coach is very important to the success of your program and everybody being on the same page. 2. Emphasize simplicity and accountability. Coach Loepp shared the importance of keeping the scheme simple to allow players to play fast with confidence. He stresses immediate accountability during practice where players are called out for any lack of effort right away rather than waiting until the next day. This helps in building good habits for the team. And 3, consider cut-the-face tackling. As Coach Loepp explained, UTSA employs a unique tackling technique called cut-the-face and press the hips, which focuses on running full speed to the outside of the ball carrier without breaking down. This technique aims to force the ball carrier to stop or change direction, allowing other defenders to make the tackle if the initial defender does not. It's designed to maintain the defense's speed and aggressiveness, leading to big plays on defense on game day. Be sure to check out our 10% toolkit. Explore these pages for helpful tips, a winning edge, and special promotions for coach and coordinator podcast listeners. You'll find information on signature championship rings, modern football technology, vertical raise, and first down playbook here. The link is in the description. If you're enjoying the podcast, please rate and review on your listening app. It helps other coaches find the podcast and helps us create a better game. Follow all we're doing at coachandcoordinator.com and follow us on X at Coach K. Grabowski.